"You're still here," she said without turning around. "I thought perhaps I dreamed you." "I'm real," I said, joining her at the window. "We both are." She turned to me, and for a moment her eyes were clear and sharp. "That man who called you last night, Richard, you shouldn't trust him, but you shouldn't trust Derek either. They're both using you, Loretta, using us." "What do you mean?" But the clarity was already fading from her eyes. "I wrote it down somewhere. I always write things down now before I forget. But then I forget where I put the notes." She laughed a sound edged with desperation. It's like living in a house where someone keeps moving the furniture. I spent the next hours searching Marie's apartment while she showered and dressed. I found notes everywhere on the refrigerator tucked in books taped to mirrors. Most were mundane reminders. Take pills at 8 a.m. Derek visits Tuesdays and Thursdays. Natalie's birthday is March 12th. But then I found one tucked inside a cookbook in the kitchen, written in shaky handwriting that grew more frantic as it progressed. "Richard knows about Loretta." He showed me a photograph. "Said she's been in Montreal for days. Said Derek is hiding her. Why Derek says Richard is stealing from me, but Richard says Derek is manipulating me. Who do I believe? I don't know anymore. I don't know anything. There's money missing. $250,000. Someone took it. Richard says Derek. Derek says Richard. I just want it to stop. I just want to remember who I can trust." The note was dated 5 days ago, 2 days before I'd arrived in Montreal. My hands trembled as I pocketed the note. Peyton had known about me before the incident at the grocery store. He'd been watching, waiting, gathering information. But how and why wait until now to contact me? Marie emerged from her bedroom dressed in slacks and a sweater, looking remarkably put together. "I'm having a good morning," she announced. "I can feel it. My mind is clear. Will you make coffee? I can never remember the right amount of water." We sat together at her breakfast table, drinking coffee and eating toast. For a few precious moments, we were just two sisters sharing a morning meal the way we should have been doing for 64 years. "Tell me about your life," Marie said. "I want to know everything. Did you marry? Have children? What did you do for work?" I told her about my late husband, James, who died of a heart attack 15 years ago, about my career as a nurse, about Derek, my only child, and how proud I'd been when he'd gotten into law school. "He was always ambitious," I said, "even as a boy. But he was kind, too. Or I thought he was." "He is kind," Marie said firmly. "I see it when he visits, the way he makes sure I've eaten, the way he reads to me when I can't focus on the words myself. But he's also desperate. I can see that too. Desperate for what? Money, security. Not for himself. For Natalie. She grew up wealthy. You know, her family lost everything in the 2008 crash. She's terrified of being poor again. And Derek. Derek would do anything to keep her happy, even things that shame him. I thought of the will, the 20 million, the careful manipulation. You know what he's doing, don't you? You know he's positioned himself to inherit half your estate. Of course I know. I'm sick, Loretta. Not stupid. Not yet, anyway. She smiled sadly. I made him the beneficiary because I wanted to. Because he's family, your son, which makes him mine too. And because I'd rather the money go to family than to charities run by people who've never met me. But what about Peyton's theft, the evidence Derek has? Marie's expression darkened. That's real. Richard has been stealing from me. I have proof. Not just Derek's proof, but my own. I hired a private investigator 6 months ago during one of my lucid periods. Richard doesn't know about him. Neither does Derek. I set down my coffee cup carefully. What did the investigator find? Everything. Richard's gambling debts, his mistress in Toronto, the shell companies he's been funneling my money through. But he also found something else. She reached across the table and gripped my hand. Loretta, your mother's estate. The documents that lawyer mentioned in the letter. Richard has them. The room seemed to tilt. How the investigator tracked the lawyer firm, Hartley and Associates. They sent copies of Ruth Collins's documents to both of us, but Richard intercepts my mail has for months. He's been opening everything, screening it. He got my copy and realized immediately what it meant. That's how he knew about you. But why didn't the lawyer contact me directly? They did. They sent a registered letter to your address in Vermont 3 weeks ago. You weren't home to sign for it, so it was returned to sender. They tried again last week. Same result. Because I'd been here in Montreal visiting Derek. The timing was almost too perfect to be coincidence. What's in those documents? Marie Shah stood up, walking to a bookshelf. She pulled out a hollowed-out book and retrieved a manila folder from inside. My investigator got copies. Richard doesn't know I have them. Inside were pages and pages of documentation, but it was the handwritten letter on top that made my blood run cold. To my daughters, Loretta and Marie, if you're reading this, then you found each other and I am gone. I'm sorry for the secrets. I'm sorry for the lies. But most of all, I'm sorry for what I'm about to tell you. Your biological mother, Mary Sullivan, didn't die in 1989 as the records show. That was a fiction created by the adoption agency to discourage you from searching for her. Mary is alive. She lives in a care facility in Burlington, Vermont, under the name Mary Brennan. She has advanced dementia now, but 30 years ago when I tracked her down, she was lucid enough to tell me the truth. You weren't given up for adoption because she was an unfit mother. You were taken from her by force by a private adoption ring, run through St. Catherine's Hospital in Burlington. Wealthy couples paid premium prices for healthy white infants, and the hospital found ways to supply them. Mary was 16, unmarried, poor. They told her you died at birth, both of you. They told her she'd had a stillborn delivery and that she should forget and move on with her life. She never forgot. She spent years searching until the grief and the drinking destroyed her. I found out about this in 1995 when a newspaper investigation exposed St. Catherine's adoption practices. Dozens of families were affected. I wanted to tell you, Loretta, every day. I wanted to tell you, but by then you had your own life, your own family. I convinced myself that the truth would only cause pain. I was wrong. You deserve to know. I've left documentation with my lawyer, evidence of the adoption ring, Mary's location, contact information for other families affected. I've also left $50,000 to be split between you and Marie. Not much, but all I could save. Use it to find the truth. Use it to make peace with what was stolen from you. I loved you as best I could. I hope that's enough. Ruth Collins. The letter was dated September 15th, 2025, 2 weeks before she died. I read it 3 times, tears streaming down my face. Our mother, our birth mother, was alive, had been alive all along, and the adoption that had separated us wasn't a choice. It was a crime. Derek doesn't know about this, Marie said quietly. He thinks the documents are just adoption records, birth certificates. He doesn't know about Mary, about the adoption ring, about the money. But Patton does. Yes. And that's why he wants to meet you. He's going to offer you a deal, Loretta. He'll give you the original documents, the ones that prove the illegal adoption, the ones that could potentially open up lawsuits against the hospital, the state, everyone involved. But in exchange, you'll have to help him. Help him. How testify that Derek has been manipulating me. Sign a statement saying that he's been keeping you away from me, preventing family contact. With your testimony, Piton can have Derek's will inheritance nullified and possibly bring criminal charges. I stood up pacing to the window. Below Montreal was coming to life. Cars filling the streets, people hurrying to work, the normal rhythm of a city that had no idea my world was crumbling. Why are you telling me this? I asked. Why not let me walk into that meeting blind because you're my sister? Because we've lost 64 years and I won't lose more to lies and manipulation. She joined me at the window. I'm dying, Loretta. Maybe not this year, maybe not next year, but the disease is taking me piece by piece. I don't want to spend what's left playing games with Richard Peaton or watching Derek destroy himself with greed. What do you want? I want the truth. All of it. I want to meet our mother if she's still alive enough to know us. I want the people who stole us from her to be held accountable. And I want you to have what's rightfully yours. Not my money, but the truth about where you came from. My phone rang. Derek. I silenced it. 5 seconds later, it rang again. Then a text. Mom, please don't go to that meeting. Peaton is dangerous. We need to talk now. He knows I'm here. I said he probably has someone watching the building. Richard is thorough. Another text came through. This one longer. Peaton embezzled $2.3 million from Marie. He's desperate. He'll say anything to turn you against me. The meeting is a trap. He might hurt you. Please. I stared at the message. Was Derek genuinely concerned for my safety? Or was he concerned about losing his inheritance? I have to go. I said I have to hear what Peaton has to say. I'm coming with you. Marie, you can't. I can and I will. It's my money he's stealing my life. They're all fighting over. I deserve to be there. Her voice was strong, clear. Besides, if I'm there, he can't lie about what I want. And neither can Derek. She was right. And more than that, I wanted her with me. My sister, the other half of myself that I'd been missing all my life. We took a cab to the Ritz-Carlton. Marie was sharp during the ride, pointing out landmarks, telling me stories about Montreal, but I could see the effort it took, the way she gripped my hand as if anchoring herself to the present moment. The restaurant was elegant and quiet, filled with well-dressed business people having power breakfasts. Richard Peaton sat at a corner table, a silver-haired man in an expensive suit who radiated predatory confidence. His eyes widened when he saw Marie with me. Mrs. Hanson, this is unexpected. Is it Richard Marie's voice was ice? You've been making decisions about my life for 3 years. I thought it was time I participated in the conversation. We sat down. A waiter appeared, but Peaton waved him away. You shouldn't have brought her, he said to me. My sister goes where I go, I replied. The word sister felt powerful, claiming a relationship that had been stolen from us. Peaton's smile was thin. Very well. Then you'll both hear what I have to say. He slid a folder across the table. Inside are the original documents from Ruth Collins's estate. Everything about the adoption ring, about your biological mother, about the money she left you. I'll give you all of it, free and clear. In exchange for what? In exchange for your testimony that Derek Collins has been engaged in financial elder abuse of Marie Hanson, that he's manipulated her into changing her will, isolated her from professional care, and stolen funds from her accounts. Derek hasn't stolen anything, Marie said firmly. Hasn't he, Peaton, pulled out another folder? 3 weeks ago, $250,000 was transferred from your investment account to an offshore account in the Cayman Islands. The authorization had your signature, but I've had it analyzed. It's a forgery. He slid a document across the table. It was indeed a transfer authorization signed Marie Hanson in handwriting that looked close to hers, but wasn't quite right. Derek did this, I whispered, or he had someone do it for him. The timing is interesting, don't you think? Right after he learned you were coming to visit, right after he knew his window of opportunity was closing. Marie picked up the document, studying it. This isn't Derek's work. How can you be sure? Because it's yours, Richard. She looked up at him with absolute clarity in her eyes. I recognize the mistakes. You always make my M too looped, and you never quite get the angle right on my W. Derek would have been more careful. Peaton's face went very still. That's absurd. Is it because my private investigator has samples of your forgeries going back 2 years? You've been practicing my signature, getting better at it, but you're still not perfect. I watched the color drain from Piton's face, watched his careful control slip. "You're confused," he said, his voice hardening. "The Alzheimer's makes me forgetful. Not blind, not stupid." Marie placed both palms flat on the table. "Here's what's going to happen, Richard. You're going to give Loretta those documents, all of them, with no conditions. You're going to resign as my financial advisor today, and you're going to return every penny you've stolen from me, or I'm going to have you arrested. You have no proof. I have an investigator's report documenting every theft. I have bank records, handwriting analysis testimony from your assistant, who you pressured into helping you. I have everything, Richard. I've had it for months. I was just waiting for the right moment to use it." Piton stood up abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. Several diners looked over. "You're making a mistake," he said quietly. "Derek is using you. When he gets his hands on that inheritance, you'll never see him again." Maybe Marie said, "But that's my choice to make, not yours. And the documents about Loretta's adoption. You think I'll just hand them over now? You will," I said. Finding my voice. "Because if you don't, we'll add obstruction and blackmail to the list of charges. Those documents belong to me. They're part of my mother's estate. Withholding them is a crime." Piton's eyes were cold with fury. "You have no idea what you're doing. That adoption ring there are powerful people who don't want that exposed. People who will make your life very difficult if you start asking questions." "Is that a threat?" Marie asked. "It's a warning for both of you." He leaned down, his voice dropping. "You think Derek is the villain here. At least he genuinely cares about you, Marie, in his own twisted way. The people who ran that adoption ring, they're still out there, still connected, still powerful, and they will not appreciate you digging up the past." He threw a business card on the table. "When you're ready to be reasonable, call me. The documents will be waiting, but don't wait too long. Your window of opportunity is closing faster than you think." He walked out, leaving us sitting in stunned silence. Marie's hand was shaking now, her moment of clarity fading. "Loretta, why are we in a restaurant? Are we celebrating something?" My heart broke. "Yes," I said gently. "We're celebrating finding each other." "Oh, that's nice." She smiled, vague and distant. "Did I have breakfast? I can't remember." I helped her to her feet, guiding her out of the restaurant, but my mind was racing. Piton's warning echoed in my head. Powerful people still connected, still out there. My phone buzzed. "Derek, where are you? I'm at Marie's apartment. We need to talk about Piton right now." And beneath that, a text from an unknown number. "Stop asking questions about St. Catherine's Hospital. This is your only warning." I looked down at my sister, already forgetting where we were, forgetting our confrontation with Piton, forgetting everything but the present moment. Somewhere in Vermont, our birth father lived in a care facility not knowing her daughters were alive. Somewhere in Montreal, my son was either a hero or a criminal, and I still couldn't tell which. And somewhere in the shadows, people who had built fortunes on stolen babies were watching. I had walked into this thinking it was just about family secrets and inheritance disputes. I was beginning to realize it was so much more dangerous than that. Derek was pacing Marie's living room like a caged animal when we returned. Natalie sat on the couch, her perfect composure finally cracked. Mascara smudged under her eyes. "Where have you been?" Derek's voice was ragged. "I've been calling for 2 hours. Do you have any idea how worried he stopped when he saw Marie's confused expression?" "What happened? Is she okay?" "She's tired," I said, guiding Marie to her bedroom. "We had breakfast out. She needs to rest." "Breakfast? Mom, you met with Piton, didn't you? What did he say? What did you tell him? Rest first." I said to Marie, helping her onto the bed. "We'll talk later." "But we just woke up," Marie protested weakly. "Didn't we?" I kissed her forehead in an instinct that felt both foreign and completely natural. Just a short nap, sister. Her eyes widened a flash of recognition. Sister? Yes, I have a sister now. I need to remember that. I need to. But sleep was already pulling her under. I closed the bedroom door and turned to face Derek and Natalie. The time for secrets was over. Sit down, I said. Both of you. Something in my voice made Derek obey immediately. I pulled out Marie's notes, the investigator's report, Ruth Collins's letter, and laid them all on the coffee table like evidence at a trial. Before you say anything, I want you to understand something, I began. I know about the private investigator Marie hired. I know about the adoption ring. I know about our birth mother being alive. I know about Peten's forgeries and his gambling debts and every penny he's stolen. And I know about the $250,000 that went missing 3 weeks ago. Derek's face went white. Mom, I can explain. Can you? Because here's what I think happened. I sat down across from them, channeling every ounce of authority I'd developed through 40 years of nursing, of managing crisis, of making life and death decisions in emergency rooms. I think you found out about me before I came to Montreal. I think you knew the lawyer had sent documents to both Marie and me, and I think you panicked. That's not let me finish. My voice was still. You panicked because you realized that if I found out about Marie, if we connected, your carefully constructed plan would fall apart. So you did 2 things. First, you made sure I was here visiting you. When those registered letters arrived at my house in Vermont, you extended my visit, kept me busy, made sure I wasn't home to receive them. Natalie's sharp intake of breath told me I'd hit the mark. Second, you moved money, a lot of money, out of Marie's accounts, not to steal it, to protect it. Because you knew Peten was about to make his move, and you wanted assets secured somewhere he couldn't touch them. Derek's jaw worked silently. But you made a mistake, I continued. You forged Marie's signature on the transfer authorization. Not very well differently than Peten's forgeries, but still detectably false, and that gave Peten ammunition to use against you. I was trying to protect her. Derek burst out. Peten was going to clean out her accounts before the court hearing. I had to move the money somewhere safe to the Cayman Islands. How is that protecting her? It's a trust account, in her name with you and me as secondary trustees. He grabbed his laptop, pulling up documents with shaking hands. Look, here's the paperwork. Every penny is accounted for. I was going to tell both of you once it was safely out of Peten's reach. I examined the documents. They looked legitimate. But I'd learned not to trust appearances. If that's true, why hide it? Why not just tell Marie what you were doing because she has good days and bad days? Natalie said, her voice breaking. What if we told her on a good day and she agreed, but then on a bad day she forgot and thought we were stealing from her? What if she told Peten he'd have found a way to block the transfer, or worse, he'd have used it to prove we were manipulating her? I studied their faces, the exhaustion, the fear, the desperate sincerity. They believed they were heroes in this story. Maybe they were. Or maybe they were just better liars than I'd given them credit for. Show me everything I said, every document, every account, every piece of evidence you have against Peten. And I mean everything, Derek. No more secrets. For the next hour, they did. Bank statements showing Peten's systematic theft. Emails between Peten and his assistant discussing how to hide the transactions. Recorded phone calls where he pressured Marie into signing documents she didn't understand. The forensic accountant's report showing a clear pattern of embezzlement totaling over $2 million. This is enough to put him in prison, I said, reviewing the last document. It should be, Derek agreed. But he has connections. His brother-in-law is Judge Harrison Mitchell. His lawyer is Peter Drummond, who's defended half the wealthy criminals in Montreal. Without Marie as a credible witness, without someone who can testify to the personal impact of his theft, the case might not stick. And that's where I come in. Derek looked up surprised. What? That's what you've been planning all along, isn't it? You need me not just as Marie's sister, but as a credible witness who can testify about her mental state, about Piton's behavior, about the impact of his theft on a family that's already been torn apart. The guilty look on his face was answer enough. I stood up, walking to the window. Outside, Montreal gleamed in the afternoon sun, beautiful and indifferent to the dramas playing out in its buildings. Here's what's going to happen, I said, turning back to them. Tomorrow we're going to do exactly what you've been planning. We're going to expose Piton, but we're going to do it right with full transparency, with Marie's consent on one of her good days, and with legal representation that isn't connected to anyone involved in this mess. Mom, I'm not finished. In exchange, you're going to do something for me. You're going to help me find our birth mother. You're going to help me track down every person involved in that adoption ring. And you're going to accept that when this is over, whatever Marie decides about her will, whether she keeps you as a beneficiary or removes you entirely, we're going to respect her decision without argument. Of course, Derek said quickly, I never. And one more thing, I pulled out my phone, opening the text from the unknown number. This came right after I left the restaurant with Piton. Someone is threatening us, warning us away from investigating St. Catherine's Hospital. I want to know who sent it, and I want to know what they're afraid we'll find. Natalie took the phone, her face going pale as she read the message. Derek, this is serious. These people, whoever ran that adoption ring, they're still out there, which is exactly why we need to move fast, I said, before they realize how much we know, before they have time to destroy evidence or silence witnesses. Derek stood up, and for the first time since I'd arrived in Montreal, I saw something in his face that reminded me of the boy I'd raised, determined, brave, and yes, genuinely caring. Okay, he said, but we do this together as a family. No more secrets. No more secrets. I agreed. A sound from Marie's bedroom made us all turn. She stood in the doorway, her hair mused from sleep, her eyes clearer than I'd seen them all day. I heard everything, she said quietly. The walls aren't as thick as you think. We froze, uncertain how much she'd understood, how much she'd remember. You want to know what I think? Marie walked into the room, her posture straight, her voice steady. I think Derek is greedy and manipulative and made terrible choices. I also think he genuinely cares about me and was trying to protect my money from a thief. Both things can be true. She sat down in the armchair, folding her hands in her lap like a queen holding court. I think Loretta is angry and hurt and doesn't know who to trust. I also think she's the strongest person in this room and the only one brave enough to demand the truth. Both things can be true. She looked at each of us in turn. And I think I'm dying slowly, piece by piece. And I'd rather spend what's left of my good days finding out where I came from than fighting over where my money goes. So here's what we're going to do. She pulled out her phone, dialing a number from memory. Hello, Joe. It's Marie Hansen. Yes, I know it's been a while. Listen, I need you to come to my apartment tonight, 7:00. Bring your recording equipment and your notary stamp. We're going to do this properly. She hung up and smiled at our stunned faces. Joe Rothstein, my lawyer, my real lawyer, not the one Piton kept pushing me toward. I hired him 6 months ago on the same day I hired the investigator. I've been preparing for this moment for a long time. You've been playing us, Derek whispered. All of us this whole time. Not playing, planning. Marie's smile was sharp. Did you really think I'd let my disease rob me of control over my own life? I might forget what I had for breakfast, but I haven't forgotten how to protect myself. She stood up, walking to a locked cabinet I'd noticed earlier, but hadn't questioned. She pulled out a key from her pocket. She'd been keeping it on her person the whole time and opened it. Inside were dozens of file folders, all meticulously labeled. Peton evidence, Derek investigation adoption records, St. Catherine's Hospital, Mary Sullivan Brennan. I've been documenting everything Marie said. Every conversation, every visitor, every lucid moment I could manage. Yes, I have Alzheimer's. Yes, I'm getting worse. But I'm not helpless, and I'm not anyone's victim. She pulled out a folder labeled Tonight's Meeting and handed it to me. Inside was an agenda typed up and printed outlining exactly what would happen at the meeting with her lawyer. We're going to do several things tonight, Marie said. First, we're going to file a formal complaint against Richard Patton, with the police complete with all the evidence I've gathered. Second, we're going to execute a new will, one that's properly witnessed and can't be challenged. Third, we're going to give Loretta full access to all the adoption records and my investigators' findings. And fourth, we're going to create a legal framework for what happens when I can no longer make my own decisions. Marie, I started. I'm making you my power of attorney, Loretta. Not Derek, not Natalie. You're my sister, my blood, and you're the only person in this room who hasn't lied to me. Derek's face crumpled. Aunt Marie, I never meant I know what you meant. I know you were trying to help, but you also wanted that money, Derek. Don't insult me by pretending otherwise. She softened slightly. You're still in the will a generous amount enough to secure your future, but the bulk of my estate is going into a trust that Loretta will manage with explicit instructions on how it's to be used. She turned to me for finding our mother, for exposing the adoption ring, for helping other families torn apart by those monsters, and yes, for Alzheimer's research, so maybe someday other families won't have to go through this. Tears streamed down my face. You're giving me everything. I'm giving you a mission. There's a difference. She took my hands. We have so little time, Loretta. Maybe a year of good days scattered among the bad ones. I want to use them for something that matters. I want to know where I came from. I want to meet our mother if she can still recognize us. I want the people who stole us to face justice. And if they're powerful, if they're dangerous, Marie's smile was fierce. Then we'll be more dangerous. We've spent 64 years not knowing each other. I'm not going to spend what's left being afraid. The intercom buzzed. Derek checked the security screen and went pale. It's the police. 2 detectives already. Natalie's voice pitched high with panic. I called them this morning, Marie said calmly. Before Loretta and I went to meet Patton, I told them I had evidence of financial elder abuse and wanted to file a formal complaint. They said they'd send detectives this afternoon. She walked to the intercom and pressed the button. Send them up, please. Derek looked at me, his eyes desperate. Mom, you made your choices, Derek. Now we face the consequences together as a family. The knock came at the door. Marie opened it to reveal 2 detectives, one middle-aged woman with kind eyes, one younger man with a notebook. Mrs. Hanson. I'm Detective Louise Morrow, and this is Detective James Park. You called about financial abuse. Yes, please come in. I have a lot to tell you. Over the next 2 hours, Marie laid it all out for them with remarkable clarity. The theft, the forgeries, Peton's manipulation, Derek's well-meaning but legally questionable attempts to protect her money, the adoption records, the threatening text, all of it. The detectives took notes, asked questions, examined the evidence. When Marie began to fade, losing her train of thought, I stepped in to fill the gaps. Derek sat silent, his future hanging in the balance. Finally, Detective Morrow closed her notebook. This is complicated, she said. The financial crimes are clear-cut. We'll need to bring Mr. Peton in for questioning. As for the transfer to the Cayman Islands, she looked at Derek. That's more ambiguous. If the account is genuinely a trust in Mrs. Hanson's name, and if she authorizes it retroactively, then it's probably legal. But Mr. Collins, you're walking a very thin line. I know, Derek said quietly. I just wanted to protect her. The road to trouble is paved with good intentions. Detective Morrow stood. We'll be in touch. In the meantime, Mrs. Hanson, I'd suggest you consider getting some protection. If there really are people who don't want that adoption ring exposed, they might escalate beyond text messages. After the detectives left, we sat in exhausted silence. The lawyer, Joe Rothstein, would arrive in an hour. There were documents to sign, decisions to make, legal frameworks to establish. But for this moment, we just sat. 3 generations of one family and one newly discovered member of another, bound together by blood and money and secrets and love. My phone buzzed. Another unknown number. I hesitated, then opened it. The message was a photograph, a grave marker. The inscription read, Mary Brennan, 1945-2025. May she rest in peace. Below the photo, a message. Your mother died this morning. Stop looking for answers that died with her. My hand shook as I showed the message to Marie. Her face went still. Then she reached out and deleted the message. They're lying, she said firmly. It's a scare tactic. Call the care facility in Burlington, verify she's alive. I dialed the number from the documents, my heart in my throat. A cheerful voice answered, Willowbrook Care Facility. How may I help you? I'm calling about a resident, Mary Brennan. Oh yes, Mary had such a good day today. She actually ate all her lunch. Are you family relief? Flooded through me so intensely I had to sit down. Yes, I'm family. Wonderful. She doesn't get many visitors. When would you like to come see her? I looked at Marie, at Derek, at this strange, makeshift family we'd become. Tomorrow, I said. We'll be there tomorrow. Because if someone was threatening us, trying to scare us away, that meant we were getting close to something they desperately wanted to hide. And I'd spent 64 years not knowing where I came from. I wasn't going to stop now. The morning light filtered through the windows of Willowbrook Care Facility in Burlington, Vermont, casting everything in soft gold. Marie sat beside me in the passenger seat of the rental car, her hands folded peacefully in her lap. She'd had a clear morning, sharp-focused present, and we both knew to treasure it while it lasted. Derek and Natalie followed in their own car. The 3-hour drive from Montreal had been quiet, each of us lost in our own thoughts about what we might find inside. Are you nervous? Marie asked as I turned off the engine. Terrified. I admitted. What if she doesn't know us? What if the dementia has taken everything? Then we'll sit with her anyway. We'll tell her who we are, even if she can't understand. We'll fill in the empty spaces of our lives, even if she can't fill in hers. Marie squeezed my hand. We're here, Loretta. Together, that's what matters. The care facility was nicer than I'd expected. Clean, bright, with artwork on the walls and the smell of coffee instead of antiseptic. A young nurse named Kelly greeted us warmly. You're here to see Mary. She'll be so happy. She's in the common room. Fair warning, though. She thinks it's 1963 most days. She talks about her babies a lot. Kelly's expression softened. The ones she thinks she lost. It's very sad. My throat tightened. Can we see her? Kelly led us through a hallway decorated with photographs and resident artwork. The common room was sunny and spacious with several elderly residents scattered about. Some watching television, some doing puzzles, one woman painting at an easel. That's Mary, Kelly said, pointing to a woman sitting by the window. She was small, white-haired, her face deeply lined. But even from across the room, I could see traces of Marie and me in her features, the shape of her jaw, the way she tilted her head. Our mother. Marie and I approached slowly while Derek and Natalie hung back. Mary was staring out the window, humming tunelessly to herself. Mary, I said softly, crouching down beside her chair. Mary Sullivan. She turned and her eyes, hazel like ours, widened. Her hand flew to her mouth. No, she whispered. No, this isn't real. You're not real. We're real, Mama. Marie said, kneeling on the other side. "We're your daughters, Loretta and Marie. We found each other. We found you." Tears streamed down Mary's weathered face. She reached out with shaking hands, touching my cheek. Then Morris, as if verifying we were solid. "They told me you died," she sobbed. "Both of you. They said you were born too early, too small. They said there was nothing they could do. I heard you cry. I know I did. But then they took you away. And when they brought you back, you were cold and still. And they said they lied," I said gently, taking her frail hand. "We didn't die, Mama. They took us, sold us to different families, separated us, but we're here now." 64 years, Mary whispered. "I've been grieving you for 64 years. We sat with her for 2 hours. She drifted in and out of clarity, sometimes thinking we were nurses, sometimes thinking we were her own long dead-ad mother. But in the lucid moments, she told us everything about the hospital, about the doctor who delivered us. Dr. Harold Weston, about the nurse who'd held her down when she tried to fight, insisted on seeing her babies, about waking up, alone being told her twins were dead, being given discharge papers, and sent home to grieve. I tried to tell people, she said, her voice breaking. I told everyone who'd listen. But I was 16, unmarried, poor. Who was going to believe me? They said I was hysterical. They said grief had made me confused. Eventually, I started to believe them too. Marie pulled out a photograph one the investigator had found of Catherine and Marie together when Marie was a child. "This is the mother who raised me. She loved me, but she knew Mama. She knew what they'd done, and she tried to find Loretta to make it right." Mary studied the photo with tears running down her face. "She looks kind." "She was," Marie said, "but I wish I'd known you too." Derek stepped forward, his expression gentle. "Mary, I'm Derek Loretta's son, your grandson." Mary looked up at him with wonder. "I have a grandson. You have a family," I said, "and we're going to make sure the people who took us from you face justice." Mary's hand tightened on mine. "They're powerful people, baby. Rich people. They have lawyers and judges in their pockets. That's why I could never prove anything. That's why nobody believed me. We have evidence now," I said. "Hospital records, adoption documents, testimony from other families. We have everything we need. Will it be enough?" I thought of Marie's meticulously organized files, of the investigator's report, of Derek's legal expertise, and Natalie's connections, of Detective Morrow's promise to investigate thoroughly. "It will be," I said with more confidence than I felt, "because we're not giving up. Not this time." We left Willowbrook 3 hours later with Mary's blessing and a promise to return soon. She'd asked us to bring photos next time to help her remember our faces on the days when her mind failed her. The drive back to Montreal was different, heavier with purpose, lighter with truth. "What happens now?" Natalie asked when we stopped for gas. "Now we fight," I said simply. "For Mary, for every family the adoption ring destroyed, and for ourselves." Back in Montreal, Marie's lawyer, Joe Rothstein, had news. Richard Peaton had been arrested that morning on multiple counts of financial fraud and elder abuse. His attempts to claim diplomatic immunity through his brother-in-law had failed. The investigation was expanding to include his other elderly clients. "There's more," Joe said, sliding a document across his desk. "We've identified 3 other lawyers and 2 judges who were involved in the adoption ring. Several are still alive, still practicing. With your testimony and the evidence you've gathered, the state is opening a formal investigation. How long will it take?" Marie asked. "Years, probably. These things move slowly. I don't have years." Marie's voice was calm, matter of fact. "So we'd better work fast. Over the next month, we worked with a speed that would have been impossible without Marie's fortune backing us. We hired a legal team. We tracked down other victims of St. Catherine's adoption ring, now elderly themselves, many having never known they were stolen. We organized, documented, built an airtight case. Hey, Marie had good days and bad days. On the good days, she was sharp as ever, directing strategy like a general. On the bad days, I sat with her and told her stories about our mother, about our childhood, that never was about the life we should have had together. Derek threw himself into the legal work with an intensity that bordered on obsessive. I watched him carefully, still uncertain of his motives. But slowly, I began to see that Natalie had been right. He was capable of both greed and genuine love, both manipulation and authentic care. He was in the end human, flawed, and complicated, and trying his best. The court hearing for Peyton came in December. Marie was lucid that day, a gift we didn't take for granted. She testified clearly, calmly about his theft and manipulation. I testified about finding my sister, about the documents he'd withheld, about the threats we'd received. Peyton's lawyer tried to paint us as opportunists, as family members manipulating a sick woman, but Marie's own lawyer produced her meticulously documented files. Months of evidence showing her clear intent and decision even as her disease progressed. The judge ruled in our favor. Peyton was sentenced to 8 years in prison and ordered to repay every penny he'd stolen. But the bigger victory came 3 weeks later. The state attorney general announced a formal investigation into the St. Catherine's Hospital adoption ring. 5 people were indicted, including 2 judges who'd signed the fraudulent adoption papers. The case made national news. Dozens more families came forward with similar stories. Marie and I were invited to testify before a state commission. We sat side by side. 2 elderly women who looked so alike that the commissioners kept getting us confused and told our story about being stolen, about living 64 years apart, about finding each other despite every obstacle. "What do you want from this commission?" one commissioner asked. I looked at Marie. She nodded for me to speak. "Justice for our mother who spent her life grieving children who weren't dead. Accountability for the people who built fortunes on stolen babies. And a promise. A legally binding promise that this can never happen again. That no family will be torn apart by greed and lies the way ours was." The commission recommended sweeping reforms to adoption procedures, mandatory DNA databases for separated siblings, and a victim compensation fund. It wasn't perfect. It wouldn't undo 64 years of loss, but it was something. In February, Marie's condition worsened. The lucid days became rare, precious gems scattered among weeks of confusion. I moved to Montreal, permanently taking over as her full-time caregiver and power of attorney. Derek visited regularly. We'd settled into an uneasy peace. I would never fully trust him again, but I could see he genuinely loved Marie. The inheritance no longer mattered to him as much. Or perhaps it did, and he just learned to be more honest about it. Either way, we managed. One evening in late March, Marie had a moment of perfect clarity. We were sitting in her apartment watching the sunset over Montreal. "Loretta," she said, her voice strong and certain. "I'm here. I want you to know something. These past months, having you here, knowing you, loving you, they've been the best of my life. Even with the disease taking me piece by piece, even with all the pain of learning the truth, I wouldn't trade these months for anything. Neither would I." I whispered, taking her hand. "I'm scared of forgetting you, of having a day when I wake up and you're a stranger again. Then I'll introduce myself, every day if I have to. I'll tell you you're my sister, my twin, my other half. And eventually, some part of you will remember even if your mind forgets, your heart will know." She smiled, tears running down her face. "Promise me something. Anything. When I'm gone, when this disease finally takes the last of me, use the money the way we planned. Find the other stolen children. Help them find each other. Make sure Mary is cared for until the end. And Derek." She paused. "Make sure he's okay, too. He's flawed, but he's family, and family takes care of family. I promise." She leaned her head on my shoulder, and we sat that way until the last light faded from the sky. Marie died on a Tuesday in June, peacefully in her sleep with me holding her hand. She was 64 years old, the same age as the years we'd spent apart. I inherited the bulk of her estate as she'd planned. Derek received a generous trust fund enough to secure his future without making him wealthy enough to be careless. The rest went into the foundation we'd established together, the Sullivan-Hanson Foundation, for adoption, truth, and family reunion. At Marie's funeral, Mary attended one of her rare lucid days. She sat beside me in the front pew holding my hand, understanding that she'd lost a daughter she'd barely had time to know. "You'll take care of things," she said. It wasn't a question. "I will, Mama, and I have." In the 3 years since Marie's death, the foundation has reunited 47 families separated by the adoption ring. We funded legal challenges that resulted in 12 convictions of people involved in the scheme. We've established support groups, DNA databases, and advocacy programs. Derek works for the foundation, now head of legal affairs. He's good at it, passionate even. Perhaps Marie's death taught him something about what really matters. Or perhaps he simply found a way to channel his ambition into something meaningful. I don't psychoanalyze it too much anymore. I visit Mary every week. She rarely remembers who I am now. The dementia has progressed too far. But I sit with her anyway, holding her hand, telling her stories about her daughters. Sometimes, just for a moment, recognition flickers in her eyes. I'm 67 now, my hair is completely white. My hands are marked with age spots, and I move slower than I used to. But I've never felt more powerful because I learned something through all of this. Age isn't weakness. Experience isn't obsolescence. The years I've lived, the pain I've survived, the wisdom I've accumulated, these are weapons more potent than youth, or strength, or money. I outmaneuvered Piton not through force but through patience and intelligence. I navigated my son's deception not through confrontation, but through strategic revelation. I honored Marie's legacy not through grand gestures, but through steady, determined action. They underestimated me. Piton, the people who sent those threatening texts, even Derek in his own way. They saw an elderly woman and assumed she could be controlled, dismissed, frightened into silence. They were wrong. Last week, I received a letter from a woman in Oregon. Her name is Patricia, and she's 62 years old. She just discovered through DNA testing that she has a twin brother in Maine. They were separated at birth through the same adoption ring that took Marie and me from our mother. "I don't know where to start," she wrote. "I don't know how to find him, how to make sense of any of this. Can you help? I sat in Marie's apartment, mine now, though I still think of it as hers," and wrote back. "Yes," I told her. "We can help. That's what we do. Because this is what 67 years of life has taught me. You can't change the past, but you can refuse to let it define your future. You can't undo injustice, but you can fight like hell to prevent it from happening again. You can't restore lost years, but you can make the remaining ones count. I spent 64 years not knowing I had a sister. I spent 6 months knowing her. It wasn't enough time. It would never have been enough time, but we made it matter. Every family we reunite, every truth we uncover, every person we help. It's for Marie, for Mary, for all the stolen children and grieving mothers who deserved better. I'm not a young woman anymore. My energy isn't limitless. My time isn't infinite. But I'm not done yet. Not by a long shot. Because the greatest power I have isn't in my youth or my strength. It's in my refusal to be silent. My refusal to give up. My refusal to let the powerful and corrupt win simply because they think an elderly woman can't stop them. They thought I was weak. They learned otherwise. And every day in Marie's memory, I continue to prove them wrong. This is my legacy now. Not money, not property, not even the years I spent as a nurse saving lives. This fighting for truth, for family, for justice. This is what I was always meant to do. I just needed 64 years a twin sister I never knew I had, and a son's complicated betrayal to finally find my purpose. Better late than never. Better imperfect than incomplete, better wise than young. I am Loretta Rose Collins, 67 years old sister of Marie Lawson, daughter of Mary Sullivan, mother of Derek Collins, and I am just getting started.